I believe in a time and a place for all techniques or methods at different points of our practice and development within mediumship. But generally, and especially in the earlier stages, I don't believe that it's a good idea or advantageous to be asking questions of your spirit communicator. A lot of people are taught to ask them, who are you? How did you die? Etc., etc. And my philosophy is that in the dance of mediumship, spirit is supposed to lead. And the minute that you start asking questions, you take control of the conversation and you run the risk of your own imagination or ego or your own mind interjecting and sort of derailing your communication. I think that when we feel the presence of the spirit communicator and simply express what we sense, that we are allowing spirit to lead, and within that, the necessary components that are essential to a quality mediumistic link naturally come forth. When it comes to getting things wrong, one thing that I think happens is, and this is more so with imagery, although it can happen on a kinesthetic level, it's more so visual symbology or imagery, is a lot of times when we get something wrong, teachers will tell us to go back and feel into the image. Well, you can't really do that. You should be feeling that image. We should always be feeling simultaneously with our other senses. And it's important to correct something that isn't working, because if we don't, then the rest of the reading just gets off track. The way we go about it, I think, can make a huge difference. You get an image and you express your understanding of what you believe it to mean, and the sitter's not understanding. Well, when you go back to feel into it, you're not going back into that moment. It's gone. Once it's perceived, it's gone. You can't hold that moment. What happens is, if you're trying to feel into a picture that you saw, you are then at that point feeling into a memory of an experience that is done and over with, and more mind comes in. So sometimes people will fight and fight and fight to make something make sense. And I do believe that we should stick with things and correct ourselves. And then other times people will just move on from it, but then everything that precedes tends to be a little off. I think the best way to correct when we've had a misstep or when we get a no is to, one, go back to the basics, re-go through what you got, and then as you're doing that, what is the next thing that comes? And usually the next thing that comes is sort of adding context to the thing that we didn't get right in the first place. But sometimes breaking it down to its simplest perception and then saying, this is what I am seeing, or this is what I am feeling. Can that make sense to you in regards to this person? Maybe my interpretation I put on this was incorrect, but these are the parts. Can you tell me in this context, am I on the right track? For example, I'm connecting with someone who's passed. I see in my mind Ernie from Sesame Street, and I say, did he have some sort of love for Sesame Street? Would you understand, the Sesame Street reference? No. But if I said, I'm seeing Ernie from Sesame Street, does that make sense to you? Perhaps there is a name that's Ernie, or again, remember to get very specific with what you perceived. I'm seeing the stuffed Ernie that I always carried around from Sesame Street when I was a child. So would it make sense to you in that context that there was one particular stuffed animal that was always carried around? Yes. And then as I say that, a new clairvoyant image comes in that gives me some context. The next thing I know, I'm seeing Paw Patrol. Oh, was this a Paw Patrol stuffed animal? Yes. So it is important, I think, to correct when you get a no. But sometimes the way that we go about it can make life a hell of a lot more easier.